Hi everyone, in today's video I show you how to make this fondant bow. So firstly I want to show you what I used, and you can see here I've got some pink paste, and this is actually a mixture of some white, the sugar paste, and the modelling paste. Now I've used 50% each. It's half and half, and I've coloured it with Colour Mills Hot Pink. Now I've done this mixture because the sugar paste will help to keep it more pliable and give you longer to work with, where the modelling paste will give it structure and help it hold its shape. So as I said, I mixed half and half, so 50% of each together, and then I added the Colour Mill, and then you can see here I'm just rolling out my paste to about 3mm thick. And just so you know, I'll leave a link to everything that I've used in this tutorial in the description, and if you'd like to see how I colour my paste, I'll leave a link to that video in there too. So from this paste we're going to cut out like the ribbons for the main part of the bow, so I'm rolling it out into a rectangular shape to make the most of the paste. And what I'm going to use to cut out my ribbons is an FMM ribbon cutter. You can see it here, and you can use it to make different widths, and it just rolls along and cuts out your shape. Now you don't need to use this, you can just use a knife, but this helps to create a nice straight line. It's going to create a nice even width ribbon, and just is a lot quicker. And it also has other adaptations for it as well, which I'll show you at the end of the video. So you just push it into your paste and just gently roll along, and there you can see you've got a nice even width ribbon. So I'm just going to remove the excess paste, and there we go. I'm just going to trim that bottom so I can remove that bit. Okay then. So I've just cut my strips to 5 centimeters in width and 17 in length. And you want to pick one strip up, turn it over, and at the end you want to create like a little M shape. So it goes down in the middle and then down at the ends. I hope you can see that there. Now I'm just adding a little bit of clear alcohol just to help secure that into position. You don't have to use clear alcohol, you can use an edible glue if you like. And there you can see that's like the top of the bow. So again, turn it over, and then we repeat that with the other side. So we create a little M shape there. A little bit of glue just to help secure the sides in place. And there you can see that's the first part of your bow formed. So there you can see, fold it over and you can see a bow taking shape. So what I like to do now is use something like a rolling pin just to pop it in there just to help hold the shape, and then as it dries that shape will remain. But because it's a mixture of sugar paste and modelling paste, you've got a bit more time to play around with it and turn it into more like a fabric. I'm just adding a little bit of clear alcohol on the top there just to help stick those two ends together. And then once I'm happy, I just pop that to one side to dry and start holding its shape while I do the other side in exactly the same way. So form your M shape, a little bit of glue to help it secure, and then the same on the other side. And if you find this tutorial helpful, please do give it a thumbs up. It really helps my little channel, and consider subscribing for future tutorials. Thank you. Okay, so that's the next one done. So in the same way, I'm just going to pop this under and over my rolling pin. I just got to get it in the right position first. Just going to move it over a bit. Well, there we go. So I'm happy with that. And again, I'll just secure it with a little bit of clear alcohol, and then I'm going to pop that to the side for probably a couple of hours, and that will help it hold its shape. And then what I do is I remove the rolling pin so it can start getting drier on the underside as well. Okay, so now I'm going to make the center part of the bow. So I've rolled it out finally again. I'm using the same width of my ribbon cutter. Now it doesn't really matter what length you do this. Mine's about 13 centimeters, but you're going to trim it anyway. So just going to check for size there, and I've got plenty of length there. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use a skewer just to fold over the edge. It just helps me fold it over. And then I'm going to do the same on the other side, and this gives a nice like ribbon effect for the middle. Okay, so I'm just adding a little bit of clear alcohol at the top there. I'm going to place my bow into position. And I'm just going to dry my brush, and then I'm just going to use it just to push up the overlap I've got there. Now this will help secure your bows, sticking them together. You could also put a little bit of glue in between them if you wanted to, if you struggled to stick them together. So now I'm just going to add a little bit of the glue on the underside of that center ribbon bit. And then I'm just going to fold it over. Just like that. And now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to trim the excess off before I tuck it underneath the bow. So what I will say here is I'm making a bow which would lay flat on your cake, so the join will be on the underside. It's not like the picture which I've shown you in the beginning of this tutorial, and I'll show you how to do that one after this one. So you've got two different ways of popping it onto your cake. So just add a little bit more glue, and then this is going to just tuck underneath the bow. So the join will be at the back. So when you pop it on a cake, the bow will be facing you and you won't see that join. So there we go. And then you can just tweak it to how you want. Because you've got that sugar paste in there, you can still, it's still a little bit pliable, and you can tweak it to make it look a bit more fabric-like without it cracking. Okay, so that's the main part of your bow done. So now we're just going to do the tails. I've just rolled out the paste in exactly the same way, use the same width of my ribbon cutter. Now my tails are about 14 centimeters in length, and I'm just going to cut the bottom there at a slant, and I'm just going to use that piece I've cut off as a template for the other side. So I got the same angle. You could of course also cut a little triangle out if you prefer. There we go. So I'm just going to pop them in the correct way. That's it. So all we're going to do here is exactly the same thing with the top, turn it over and then pop it into an M position. And then secure with some glue. And then I'm going to do exactly the same with the other tail. So turn it over, a little bit of glue to help it secure, and pop it in your M position. Lovely. Okay, so there are our tails made. So now we're going to put the bow together, and I'm just going to add a little bit of clear alcohol to one side of the tails and then pop the other one on top so that it sticks together. Just going to flatten it slightly because obviously the bow is going to go on top. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add a small ball of pink paste onto that, and that will flatten it out a little bit because at the moment it's at a little bit of an angle, so your bow would sit at a funny angle. So if you pop that on, you can get a nice flat base to pop your bow onto. There we go. So pop that in there, and then again a little bit of glue, and then you can stick your bow on top. And then you can tweak it to how you want it to be. So this is now ready to be popped onto a cake, and you can also make smaller bows in exactly the same way, even for cupcakes. But now I'm going to show you how to do the one that I've showed you at the front of this tutorial, and that is standing up on the cake, and I kind of build it on the cake. So firstly, I place the center bit in a different position, as we now want the join to be underneath the bow and not at the back. So here you can see I'm going to do that. So I'm just going to get my brush dry so I can just pop that up, help secure it into position. My bow's a little bit squished now because I used the same bow as I did for the first part of the tutorial, but I just wanted to show you two different variations. So secure that into position, and then we're going to fold that over like you can see there. Going to trim it to size, and then we will glue it into position with the join underneath. So add a little bit of glue and then fold it over. So now I've got the join underneath, so I can pop it on a cake like that, and you will not have the join at the back. People won't see the join. And now the tails. So I'm going to show you how I did the tails. So this is actually been rolled out a little bit thinner, as I'm going to apply it directly to the cake. I can play with it a little bit more. So I've rolled it a little bit thinner, and I'm not going to bother sticking it because I'm going to stick it onto the cake. And being thinner means I can stick it onto the cake and play with it a little bit more to a little bit more like fabric. So you can see I've just applied a little bit of the clear alcohol, and then I've stuck that into position, and then I can play with it because the cake will support it. So I can play with it to make it look more like fabric. I hope that makes sense. So I'm just going to pop the other one on. There we go. And again, just tweak it to how you want it to be. I hope you can see it looks like nice fine ribbon fabric there. So you want to make sure you push the top parts together a little bit so you've got a basis for your bow to go on top. There we go. And now you can just stick your bow on top like so. If you struggle to get it to stay upright, you can always pop a bit of paste underneath. But that is your tutorial finished, and I just wanted to show you the other things that come in the ribbon set. So you can see you kind of got like a serrated wheel there, and that gives you a nice serrated edge ribbon. And these are to make like stitch marks. So I'm just going to show you how it works. I'm just going to undo it from my ribbon that I had. And you can see all these little bits come out, so you can use them to make different size ribbons, different widths. So I'm just going to change it to the serrated, the bumpy edge, I don't know what to call it. And then I'm just going to put one of the adapters in there to make it not so wide this time. And then you just pop it all back on. Don't screw it up too much because your wheels won't be able to turn. So it's always good to check before you start that it moves around. And then I'm just going to show you what this cutter does. So there we go, that's a nice kind of serrated edge. So if that's the type of ribbon you want, that's how to do it. And then I'm just going to show you the stitch side as well. So pop some of the adapters back on. Again, don't screw it up too hard because it won't move. So just check before you try it on your paste. You see there it didn't move, so I've just got to loosen it a little bit. There we go. And then I'm just going to show you what it does. So there, see if you had a wider ribbon, and then you could make that a little bit narrower and then have the stitching just at the edge of the ribbon. And there we go. I'll leave a link to this in the description so you can always have a closer look if you wanted to. Thanks for watching my tutorial. Please do check out my other ones. Please comment, like and subscribe for more, and hit that notification bell. Thanks for watching.